This is week number 4 of Trial of the Grand Crusader, and if you are struggling to get above 40 in your parses, this is the video for you. The first thing we have to see is what adds count towards your parse and what adds do not. For Northern Beasts, any damage you do to any ad counts towards your parse. The vassals on Gormor can only be targeted to be cleaved, so if you're targeting the boss, you can't cleave the ads. The second fight of this raid has also a lot of ads and all the damage counts towards your parse. The only thing you can avoid cleave because it won't matter in your parse are the Mistress of Pain who are not gonna die. So if you're close to killing the boss and there is a full health Mistress, just ignore her. The faction champions, well, it's a fight. And the twin Valkyries have no ads. So we just fly to the last boss, Anub. Here, any damage you do to the Scarabs doesn't count, and the only damage that counts to the big ads is only from the 2 first phases. So no matter how much damage you do in phase 3, it won't count towards your parses. The next really important thing we must check is cooldown usage, and this is highly dependent to your guild's kill timers. We are currently killing the beasts in under 5 minutes. The next 2 bosses, Valkyrie and Jaraxxus, in 2 minutes 15, and Anub usually do 4 minutes 20. Cooldown usage is really dependent on when your guild uses heroism or bloodlust, so I'm gonna try to consider that when suggesting when you should use your 1, your 2, your 3 and your 5-minute cooldown. The only way to parse in the first fight is to use heroism when the Yeti hits the wall. This is the time that he gets more damage, and this is when you need to hit it the hardest. If your guild is still progressing, you're probably using lust on the 2 worms, and this is okay, but it's gonna affect your parse. In Lord Jaraxxus and in Twin Valkyries, you're gonna use heroism on pool, and at the last fight of the raid, unless you are in one of those 2 guilds, you're probably still using heroism on the 3rd phase. With those times in mind, let's just break down the cooldown usage. In the first boss, you're gonna use your 1-minute cooldowns 3 times. One when you pull the boss, the second time when the worms spawn, and the third time when the boss hits the wall. Your 2 and 3 minutes cooldowns will be used on pull and on heroism, and your 5 minutes cooldowns will be used only on heroism. With our kill timer that is 2:15 in Lord Jaraxxus, we can use our 1-minute cooldowns 3 times, once when we pull, once at the 1-minute mark, and once at the 2-minute mark. The 2 minutes cooldown should be used on the pull and when it's coming back, and 3 and 5 we're just going to use on the pull on heroism. The same thing you're going to do at the Twin Valkyrie fight, it's exactly the same with the same kill timer as Lord Jaraxxus. At Anubarag, you can use your 1-minute cooldown once every phase start. You can use your 2 and 3 minutes cooldowns on heroism and on pool, and the 5-minute cooldowns you're gonna use it on heroism. With that out of the way, let's just try to see what you can do at each fight, small tips and tricks in order to increase your damage and to avoid situations that will make you unable to hit the bosses. Starting with Gormor, as we said earlier, most of the cleave spells cannot target the kobolds, so you have to target them instead and cleave the boss. In the worms, you can probably dot and cleave both of them, even though most guilds will not have them close. What you have to take really good care of here is that you don't get paralyzed by the poisons and you run to the correct tongue, even though running to the tongue that is in the opposite side will probably kill your parse. The third phase of the fight is the one that can make or break a parse. Especially if you're a melee, there is a sweet spot that will enable you to not get knocked back. If you are in a max melee range, you can hit that sweet spot and it's guaranteed to make you parse better than if you get knocked 3 or 4 times and you have to run all the way back to the boss. Another thing that is going to be really important for your parse is not to use your rocket boots when you're targeted or when you're close to where the Yeti will hit his head. This, you have enough time to dodge the hit with your normal walking speed. So use the boots to get to the boss if you're really far away, because this is also the time when you're gonna last, and this is the biggest damage you will be doing. If you're wondering why it's dark behind me, is because I left this tip out because I forgot it. So another thing you can do in Icehole, especially if you're a caster, is to sit closer to the wall. This will make sure that you get hit less times by the freezing breath. That means your parse is going to be drastically better. For Lord Jaraxxus, I have a special tip for all the cleaving classes. You want to be doing your maximum amount of damage when the portal spawns. If you have proc trinkets, the only way to have them both active at that time is to swap to 2 random trinkets before the pool and swap back into your normal trinkets. This will enable them to go on a 30 seconds cooldown and pop right when you need them. In Twin Valkyries, there's 2 things to consider. If you're a class that your normal rotation includes a lot of cleaving, like Hallowing Blast on Frost Decays, then you absolutely should use it. But if you go out of your way to dot the second boss, it's probably not worth it because the damage you do is so much lower in the second boss. Another thing is that you probably shouldn't go out of your way to pick up the orbs of the color you're having to get that 100% damage increase because it doesn't count in the parsing. Even though everybody should know this by this time, if you're hitting the wrong boss, then your parse is just going to be destroyed. So keep an eye at what you're hitting, who has the black and who has the white colors and stuff like that. Let me also say that how you parse in this boss is highly dependent on the boss abilities. If you get the right abilities casted from the boss in the right sequence, you're probably gonna parse much higher than somebody else. Before I finish with what you need to do in a Nubarak, and because it's relatively simple, let me remind you guys to hit that like and subscribe button, because with a quick video that I didn't stretch to 20 minutes, you learned all this stuff. So in a noob, what you need to do is pretty much cleave as hard as you can the adds on phase 2 and phase 1. In this fight, unless you're in one of the handful of guilds that can kill it in one single phase, you're probably not gonna see 99s and 100 parses. Also, even though it's kind of mind-boggling to me because it's a relatively easy fight and it's not even a gear check, there is a lot of guilds that are still struggling with it, and most of the packs really struggle with this. So your parses are going to be significantly lower than what it is in all of the other. That was all for today, folks. I am Thatgreekarchitect, and even though I'm not the best gamer, I might design your house one day. See you in the next one. Cheers!